I'll make a start. Thank you all for coming, first of all, and making time in your schedules. I know that you're all very busy, lots of deals to be done, so thanks for your presence. We're going to be talking today about sports channels, and I think that everybody is aware that there's been an enormous increase in commercial revenues around sport in the last 20 years, and to a very large extent that's been driven by television and media rights income, and within that in particular by the growth of pay television during the 1990s, during the last decade. And I think that sports pay TV platforms, premium channels have been very much the engine of growth for revenue in the industry. And I think one of the things that we'll be looking at today is what the situation is now and how that's likely to develop in the future. There's been obviously a huge increase in the value of media rights across Asia for many properties, both local and international. And I guess one of the questions that we'll address is whether that's something which is sustainable, whether the market dynamics beneath that are changing, what the potential is for future growth, new entries coming into the market, and the implications. We have a brilliant panel with, between the three of them, an enormous amount of experience right across the industry. From Fox International Channels, we have a Senior Vice President of Content and Communications for Sport, Rohit De Silva. We get the perspective of one of the most successful indigenous pay television platforms in Asia, Astro, from their VP of Sport Business, CK Lee. And a very broad perspective, someone who's worked for agencies, has worked for indigenous pay television broadcasters and also channel distributors, and so very wide experience, but at the moment is the CEO of MP & Silva, Peter Hutton. I'd like to begin with a very open question to both Rohit and Peter. I'll start with Rohit. What does Asia represent for Fox International Channels?
All right. In terms of for Fox International Channels, Asia is one of the largest regions that we have. It's a region where we have the most broad-based offering. We have 4 main genres which we operate in: sports, factual entertainment, Hollywood movies, series, and Chinese entertainment. Coming specifically to sports, we have a very strong, well-established, broad-based, highly localized business. We broadcast in 4 languages. We have over 31 million cumulative subscribers, and we have present across all types of tiers, premium tiers, basic tiers, varying distribution across markets, and a business that is robust and growing. So it represents an extremely important facet of our business in Asia, the sports piece, and equally an extremely important facet of our business overall as Fox International.
MP & Silva, what does that mean?
I think it's the emotional home of MP Silva for all the Italian image. This is where Andrea started off with a party house in Sentosa, and he lost his youth there, and I lost my hair. So between the two of us, we clearly bonded to the area, and I think we've clearly seen the markets grow up over the last 20 years, and it's been at the heart of what MP Silva has grown from trading 1 or 2 rights to dominating the football space in the territory. And it's something that we clearly see as a strength of the company, and it's something that allows us to tell a great story around the world, because people are looking for Asian solutions and we help them to find an Asian solution.
And CK, obviously you're coming at this from a very different perspective as being a local operator as opposed to big international media companies coming into Asia. Could you give us a little bit of background about Astro is one of the most well-established pay television platforms. Could you just give us a little bit of an idea of where you stand in your local market and what are the defining characteristics of Astro?
Yeah, I mean, when Astro started 17 years ago, we were just all about television. But today, you look at the landscape, it's very different. Besides content being on OTT services and on the digital platforms and all, my role has changed from a television content person to business owner right now. So we don't look at content as per just TV content. We look at business development as in are there any other sports, general ecology of sports, and you need to be everywhere. It's just not about TV anymore. So right now we started off with very international flavor content lineup. Now we're going very, very heavily focused on local content from sports into non-sports genre. So that's really the driving force behind our current group, is local content.
Okay. And Rohit, obviously, we're coming from a situation where there's an evolution from the joint venture ESS with Disney into the FIC controlling the Fox Sport Crown. What are the main differences in the way that you operate now compared to the way that ESS operated?
Well, I think the most significant difference is that we have a decentralized business in Fox International Channels, which is also, which at the same time is very connected. So just from a market perspective, we've, in the last 9 months, we've established sports broadcasting and production hubs in Taiwan, Hong Kong, starting off in the Philippines and Japan, in addition to Singapore. Right. So as against looking at the entire Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan as one region where we broadcast from a single location, we're doing it across all of these markets. We have local production facilities. We see the need to align ourselves more with what our partners, with what consumers require, and what, like what CK is saying, you've got to be able to deliver value across the chain. So we've really focused on that. Also putting a lot of emphasis on 3 other things apart from just the rights. Production, so going into local producing locally. Also building up the brands, and which is where the change as against the old ESS scenario is that Fox Sports is part of a family of Fox International Channels, which reaches out to about 150 million Twitter subscribers. So we are pushing out sports to a much wider audience, promoting it very aggressively. And the third is, we're looking at very closely at our on-screen talent, because we believe in order to add value to our partners and get more people, the biggest challenge we have is we think that there should be a lot more people watching sports in general than they are today. And that's where the real opportunity is, and that's where we're really focusing our efforts by doing.
And when you go to distributors, what are the commercial advantages for you of having sport as part of a much bigger, much stronger package?
When we go to a platform and we sit down, we have the ability to look at multiple ways in which we can provide value. But within that, our sports offering is extremely robust. It stands on its own legs. It delivers to deliver the requirements that the market has. But you do have this ability to cross-promote. Just give you an example of Australian Open, where we had American Idol on Star World at the same time. So we did a big cross-promotion between Australian Open and American Idol. So we can add more elements to the whole thing. And then also in working with our partners, since we have for our entertainment business, it's extremely, we have local offices in 14 markets, we have teams on the ground. For us to be able to provide local production for sport, to do various other things that make the product more vibrant, do consumer activation, we're able to do a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot better as a result of being a part of an integrated network.
Okay. And then Peter, you talked about, we know that Asia was, from the very day one with Andrea was very much a target market, and you developed as an agency a big rights trading activity, but also you've had around that rights trading and core activity, you've had other things like you've got the joint venture with Pitch, and now obviously the joint venture with beIN Sport. Can you say a little bit about how these things evolved, why you moved into these other kind of partnerships?
Sure, I think it's basically the same philosophy. As an agency, we're all about maximising the revenue for the people we represent. And I think you have to look at creative solutions to do that. If you look at the channel business, for example, which seems quite a strange thing for us to get into, the theory was, we had a whole bundle of rights in Indonesia, which we saw as being worth more than we could get from the local market. So we had Andrea had the bravery to say, let's launch a channel, because the value of the channel will increase the value of those rights. So we set up a channel, we created a profitable business, and we've also created more competition in the market. And I think that has to be our philosophy, is that where we go in, we have to be slightly opportunistic, try and change the market, add value to the clients that we represent, and leave a long-term legacy, which means we have a healthier market.
And initially, when the joint venture launched, it was 5 territories in Southeast Asia. Can you just give us an update on what the situation is in terms of distribution in those markets at the moment for the channel?
I always run the risk of forgetting one, but in Indonesia, the situation is pretty healthy. We're on sort of 5 or 6 platforms now, and that's always been the spirit of the Indonesian business, is that we want to package it across a variety of different operators, but also to create a competition in terms of value. We don't want to sell the same product exactly to the same operators. So we have gold, platinum, silver packages. Different operators have different games from the Premier League, so that nature of exclusivity is presented. In Hong Kong, we've just started with TVB. In the Philippines, we're on Sky Cable and some of the cable box systems. In Thailand, we just launched with True. And it's fair to say that, even though it feels a long time, that all of them are very new businesses, and it will take time for them to grow and find their sort of real strength and image. And an important learning process for us is how to do that in the image of beIN Sport, and to work with the management in Qatar. It's clearly our sort of long-term aim. We want to have them take control and really shape the channels in the face of the brand. And beIN Sport's a dominant sports brand in the Middle East. It's now very strong in France and growing in the US, and the channels have to follow that image. So if you like, a lot of our job is done. We provided the base from which it will grow, and I think the beIN Sport team will lead that growth going forward.
Is it premature to ask about markets that you're going to be looking at next?
Look, I think we look at every market on a daily basis as we hit those targets, and each market provides a different challenge and a different solution. I don't see that joint venture with beIN Sport being one that will roll out in other territories. But then that's today, it might change tomorrow. What we have to do is maximise the value of all our properties in every market in Asia. And that means different sorts of solutions across different sorts of media. It may be linear channels, it may be providing more OTT content, it may be providing a multitude of services. And I think as an agency, that's the challenge for us, is that we have to remain creative, look at the problems, continue reappraise, and see different ways of raising value.
And CK, could you delineate a little bit? Obviously, at the moment, you have your platform, and on that platform, you have your own sports channels. You also carry third-party sports channels. Could you give us a breakdown of what you have in terms of sport on the platform, both your own and third party, and maybe say a little bit about what the competition is at the moment within Malaysia to your platform?
Right now we have 14 sports channels. 10 of them is in ASEAN, 4 in Asia. Of all those channels that we mentioned, we currently produce 6 of our own channels. How we see the third-party channel is it should be complementary rather than compete. I mean, we are in a lucky position because we have almost every sporting event in the world, and together with Fox Sports and also the content that we acquired from MP Silva, we do have a very comprehensive sports offering for our viewers. And it is always difficult to find that fine balance of what should be your own channel and what should be on other people's channel. I'm sure there's this space that we can find that both parties can coexist. Just to keep these guys on guard so that they don't push the price up for me.
We always look after you. I mean, one of the things you asked earlier was about where we'd look to launch channels, and Malaysia is an example of a place we wouldn't look to launch a channel. It works very well for us at the moment.
Good to know, Peter.
Partly because CK wouldn't put us on, but also because it's a healthy market for us, and in a territory which works well, we look after those longer term relationships.
So CK, on your own sports channels, what is the number one sports property for you as a driver for your business?
Right now it's still football. Football is primarily being driven by 2 types of football: English Premier League and also the domestic local football. Just to give you an understanding, the domestic local football viewership is way bigger than the Premier League football. And I've told her that now Rohit is coming to market to try to get involved in local football. Maybe you could tell us some plans about that one.
I was going to ask you, if tomorrow at Fox Sports, when Peter just said there's no imminent threat from beIN Sports, but if one of these guys came in and went after your key property, how would you react? I mean,
like I say, we need to find that the fine balance of that space that both of us could coexist. And I believe there is such space. We just need to work hard to see that it works for, it's a win-win situation for all parties. You know. At the end of the day, it's just three of us here against the right soul. That's the end game.
I'm with the right soul.
But Rohit, when we were talking yesterday, you were saying that you know, from the outside, maybe from a media perspective, it's very easy to characterize everybody as rivals and competitors. But at the end of the day, you were saying that the industry as a whole needs to grow, needs to develop, and the more new players that come into it, the more content, the better content, that drives the whole pay television business across Asia, and ultimately everybody benefits. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what people need to look at is not just buying rights and looking at that as a primary source of value. That will always be a key component. But investing in production, investing in being able to deliver content, as CK says, over the top, on mobile, to get more people to pay for watching television sport on TV. So that's the more people who are involved in driving up and building the ecosystem. I mean, that's a good thing for all of us. Because right now, penetration levels for pay television, overall viewership of sport is still low. So we all need to work and contribute, which is what FIC has done. Its history is that it gets into categories where it goes HD very fast, it localizes, it kind of helps platforms to grow. And we're in the B2B business. We work closely with platforms, with partners to deliver that value.
And you also syndicate content. You don't just have your own channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our business is broad-based, so we look at working with partners to syndicate content, whether it's on free-to-air, whether it's on the digital platforms, whether it is on our pay TV platform partners channels. I think there's no one set formula which works across the board, and like Peter said, it's constantly evolving set of criteria that we all have to work with. So that's something that we've taken on board. We don't see ourselves as just very straight-jacketed approach. We need to be flexible, and we need to work with how the market evolves.
And Peter, what kind of, obviously, we were all familiar going back a few years with the Asian tiger economy and the huge growth and double-digit growth across many countries, particularly Southeast Asia, which is slowing down a little bit. There's still obviously a huge margin for growth in pay television penetration in specific countries. From a macroeconomic perspective, what do you see as the margin for growth for pay television across Asia?
I still see a lot of room for it, and I think, again, I define it beyond pay television. If you look at the clips business that's now going out to the newspaper websites, you look at the potential for OTT content and the streams that are available and monetizing those streams, and all sorts of different doors are opening all the time. We just came here from Tokyo and looking at the variety of deals and the way that rights are sold across different platforms there is a fantastic model to try and replicate in other territories, and in each territory to challenge the way that it's been sold before and to make sure that more content is available. I think one of the issues that we face over the next few years is how you get more of that content out there. And what CK has done in Malaysia and what the guys in Singapore have done by putting every Premier League game on and creating that expectation that if there's a Premier League game, you will be able to see it, is clearly something that attracts other leagues. And it attracts them for two reasons. A, you grow your fan base and you have to get the product out there. But also it goes back to their own vote bases. Every club wants their games out and available around the world, and we have to try and find a way that does that for Serie A, for Liga, for the English Championship, and we need to see those solutions. And those are not necessarily ones that immediately benefit the broadcasters and immediately bring in revenues, but they're ones that help grow the brands that we represent.
You were saying that in Malaysia that pay television growth started to tail off a little bit. As a platform, what can you do around just simply buying attractive content to keep delivering a new proposition, to keep drawing new customers in?
I think for all pay TV businesses, there comes a point that you probably reach that stage of saturation. And what we're doing is we're looking at the larger engagement. The low-hanging fruits, we already pluck all of them. We're looking at those people that would like pay TV but could not afford them. So we have different price points for different type of consumer what do you call it, preferences. You know. So we have launched 2 years back a free set service where you will there was no subscription. You buy the box and then we provide you 18 free channels to watch, and when you're ready, you just upgrade to our premium pay-TV customer.
And I think those stepping stones are really important, you know, both in terms of building a pay audience, but also in terms of getting people aware of sports and engaging with sports, you know, and finding some small clips and encouraging new services and trying to get people to touch and care about the best sports stories of the day is very important. You know, it's, a lot of us grew up with the back page of newspapers being the way that we found out about the best stories, and as you move away from that sort of gathering of the best stories in one place, it's very difficult to try and move people into new sports and engage with new sporting heroes. And that, I think, is one of the challenges as well.
I mean, this morning we were talking about brand development. We talked a lot about digital and social media, and it seemed to be the consensus was this is really important. It's really important for reaching younger audiences and really important for brand building, but very difficult to monetize. I mean, the consensus seems to be that clips and short form content and digital and social is an area that nobody has really completely cracked. I mean, I might be wrong. I mean, do you feel that's something that, Rohit, is still a learning curve for everybody to monetize digital, or are you ahead of the game on that already?
What we've done so far is that we focused on authenticated apps, which are available to subscribers to the platform. I think going forward, there are a lot of opportunities. I think that no one has really cracked the exact model that's going to work, and I don't think there's going to be one uniform model that's going to work across markets. I think what works in Singapore might be very different from what works in Indonesia and what works in Malaysia. So that's the, you know, it's one of those things where I think in the next couple of years we will have a lot of more development on it, and we're aligning ourselves to be able to deliver our brands, our channels, and the content across different types of solutions. So because we can cater to whatever works in the market.
And piracy is not helping too, of course.
Okay.
And what we do is we provide it as a value-added service to our sports customer, because like what you say, there's no magic formula on how to monetize it on a standalone basis. Yes, you know, there are people that want to buy a per match or per weekend pass to watch sports, but is it really worth your time just to service these 200 or 2,000 people? You know.
I think the other point about the digital content is including the involvement of the audience with the content. You know, we looked at Formula One in particular, and you see that, you know, huge fall in audience from the first 5 minutes where people will watch the start and then they'll come back on maybe at the end of the race. And to provide a variety of different content from Twitter feeds to multiple channel feeds to the pit camera, you know, that's a way of keeping an audience and keeping that attention span. In an age where attention spans are falling, you need to provide them a way of them making choices through that race, which then keeps them as your audience and keeps them as your potential source of benefit to advertisers through the whole period of the sports event.
Yeah, just wanted to add on that. Like for Formula One, what we're doing is we're taking 5 Mach speeds, 5 different camera angles, and providing it on our player service. You know, that's the idea. The idea is to enhance the coverage and provide people with a more in-depth and immersive experience. So going forward, I think solutions which allow people who've kind of come in for the first 5 minutes, gone away, come back half an hour later, they're at 40. They want to immediately be able to catch up in 2 minutes as to what's happened in the race so far. You should be able to do that. So I think solutions which allow people to consume in different ways, and a lot of those consumption solutions are going to come through, not going to come through the traditional linear model. They're going to be linked with linear. They're going to be around the framework of brands. I think still brand. One of the reasons why it's been difficult to, you know, if people are generally people find it difficult to navigate for content on digital is that there's so much out there unless you're really specific and know what you're looking for. Our belief is that the branded solutions provide this connect where people can get a better sense of can navigate towards destination, and then you try to keep them there by offering various types of solutions.
Sure. I mean, CK mentioned piracy. I mean, is that a really big issue out here in Asia? I mean, what kind of levels of piracy are we talking about?
Well, on the online space, definitely, yeah. It's a big impact for us. Hence, none of us can really monetize it.
The piracy is a big concern. I think you have people just ripping off channels, streaming them online to various types of services, and they keep cropping up, faster than you can keep track of them. So collectively, as broadcasters and platforms, channel groups, it is a major concern. I think should be for the rights holders as well, because it can actually take so much value.
And I think one of the realities of the situation is that you know that there will be a feed out there on the internet. There will be a stream of virtually every sports event of any value. So to provide your own streams where an audience knows where they're going to go, they know there's a feed out there that's reliable and is genuine, is something that helps make that solution. You can have the internet piracy firms close down website after website, but they will keep popping up like a fairground game. So you need to find a real solution. And the best solution is when a potential customer knows where to go for a stream, and it doesn't take you into a pirated feed.
Sure, but if yours is really high quality but paid, and the thing which is out there is not so good quality but free, it's still going to be a challenge, isn't it?
It is, but I think one issue is maybe you make it advertising supported if it's streamed. Maybe you make the experience not quite as premium as your TV experience. But above all else, just having a place you know where you can go and you know what you can get, I think is part of the solution.
I agree, Peter. I mean, the key to this is you have to provide a better service than the pirates. Ease of navigation, things like that viewers can just go in day in, day out, they know what they're getting. And all the ancillary content that we put on, that will help.
And is it something that, just one final question on piracy, is it something that isn't addressed properly at regulatory level there? Do you feel across Asia that governments and people who can intervene are not taking it seriously enough?
I don't really think they could do much.
Right, okay. Pirates are always one step ahead. Okay, just to go back to content for a moment, and CK, you talked about, mentioned local content and the Malaysian Football League. What are the other areas of local content? Because I believe, a lot of people said to me in the last few days that one of the things that Astro has really got a reputation for is investing heavily in local sport. Is that, I would imagine that requires quite a major investment in production. How's that working for you?
It's a very long-term plan, obviously, because at the end of the day, we look at Premier League and Spanish La Liga, it's just something that's really beyond our reach. If you look at local content, local football, and our views with the local federation, it's just at our backyard. We can monetize it better. In terms of sponsorship, we have access to the team, the stadiums, the players, the managers, and everyone else, including the marketing activities. It's much more easier for us to sell sponsorship around it. Plus, when we meant localization, it's just not in a different language. You have to have the right talent, the right story that resonates with the local viewer. It's not as simple as just putting on a Brands in Malaysia, for example.
And also that's an image you can build around longer term. One of the issues in Asia is that in the days when all the sports channels were based around international content, the content was often sold on 3-year rights cycles. So you've got no real foundation for your image as a channel. You are the Premier League channel, and then 3 years later somebody else is the Premier League channel. Whereas to be able to do deals with local federations, you can go longer term, and you can build up that local talent and credibility talking about local content, and that helps change you into a much more sustainable and marketable brand.
You've just moved into baseball in Taiwan. Is that the first MP and Silver deal which is a genuinely local property rather than an international property? Why have you gone in for that?
I think for a driver property, yes, absolutely. It's a big investment for us, and it's a big change in philosophy. But I think the MP Silver philosophy, as it stands today, because these things do change, is all about being associated with the brands that people care about in markets. So therefore, we associate with the premium products. And if you look at any market, the domestic #1 sport is the most premium product of all. And in competitive markets, that's also where the inflation growth is in terms of value. So it makes a natural fit for an agency like ourselves. It's something that we followed up in a couple of other markets, and the one that's already been announced is Belgium, where we bought the local rights to the football there as well. And I think for us, that's something that we're looking at around the world, where we see a number of opportunities to provide a #1 sport in that market, and work with the federation to grow the value, both locally and internationally.
And Rohit, when the separation was first announced from Disney, I remember at the time the company told us that one of the areas that you were going to move into was specific local content. I mean, you've done a lot of very for Fox, you've done a lot of very big deals, multi-territory deals, things like the Bundesliga, the French Open. Are there many territories where you've gone in for very specific local solutions in terms of content so far?
Yes, I think in Philippines we're currently with the Philippines Basketball Association. In Taiwan we're working with the SPL. As we go along, we will do more and more of these types of relationships where it is competitive, where it makes sense in the market and it's something that we can drive value for ourselves and our partners. In Japan, we made a very big move where we've moved into local baseball, where we are, we have a lot of we're producing local baseball and everything across the board. So it's one of those things where these are, like Shiki mentioned, it's long-term investments. So we're looking at them across the markets, and we will have more things on those lines as we go along. So we're really focusing. It's not just also about buying a set of local rights. It's an ability to create value around that. So produce content around that which is relevant. Have again it says right stories, right talent. So these are things which we just don't want to rush into and just go ahead for leather. Whenever we do, we're very fortunate to inherit a business which has been in Asia for close to 20 years. Very fortunate to have Fox's national channels. We started off really small with Nat Geo, which today is more than 50 channels. So we're in it for a really long term, and so therefore we have to be very careful about how we approach things. Be opportunistic, but also make sure that we can really provide value. There's no point of just doing stuff.
And one thing that since I started following the industry, people have always said to me, certainly in the early days, was that there was always an obsession with exclusivity. I go back to 99, 2000 when I first started writing about the industry. If I ever spoke to anybody in pay television, it was had to be exclusive, had to be exclusive. Is that something which is changing as pay television markets mature, or is it still really fundamental to the mindset of people acquiring content?
I think exclusivity can mean different things to different people. I think one of the things that we've noticed in Japan with the deals that we've done up there around Bundesliga is that we've created value around 8, 9 games being shown in a week, but different broadcasters with different time slots. I think the key thing with exclusivity is you have a unique story to tell. And that doesn't mean full exclusivity across all products, all days, all games, but as long as your story is exclusive, then you can drive subscription value. I think if you look at the UK and what BT have done now, they don't have exclusivity on the Premier League, but by having 2 key games of the week, they have a unique enough story that creates value for them.
And CK, you were saying that for Astro, there are a number of properties where, because the costs associated with acquiring exclusively are so high, that often it doesn't make sense for you to focus, and you're quite happy to share with rival platforms on certain content?
Yeah, that one actually depends on your own business. With Astro, we at about 54% of the total market penetration. We do have the base, and we don't need everything on an exclusive level right now because of the escalating cost of rights. They're just going through the roof. When will this end? And for us, we'd rather be the content aggregator and farm out some rights to our competitors to share the cost and for us to monetize like what we do. That is much more on our slide what we're looking at.
And then you mentioned there about the escalating cost of rights. I mean, Rohit, is that something that you just see as inevitable trend? I mean, is there going to come a point where prices begin to stabilise, or as more and more new players come into the market, is that just going to keep pushing the dynamic, the level of competition, and pushing rights price? Because ultimately, it's a key factor in your costs, I would imagine, the rights acquisition. Is that something you see just continuing to escalate for the foreseeable future?
I think I'm not going to make a prediction on that. I think when I first joined the company, one of the things Greg told me, he's been around for 30 years, and he said he always thought that there are times when the rights will values they will flatten out, but that doesn't happen. So I think you look at the history of how sports rights have evolved over the last 50 years, it's gone up. I don't see that. I think you have to just look at the trend and see how it goes. Coming to the point on exclusivity, I think in markets where our approach is in markets where the penetration level of television is very high, there is no we are exclusive. and really it's about, for us, it's all about driving the overall penetration on free television. I think it's markets where penetration levels are still low, sub 20%, which is where we see, as the largest aggregator of channels, we see that there's an opportunity for us to really contribute to the increase in penetration of free television. So in Astro, we're working together, it's penetration levels are fairly high, still potential to grow, but there's no reason to be
And on a slightly separate topic, do you think with very powerful media groups coming in into Asia, do you think there's still room for smaller independent, for example, say niche channels, if there's a specific sport or a US sport channel or a rugby channel? Are those guys going to be squeezed out of the market, or do they still have a role?
I think they have a role, and I think the customers appreciate that role. If you're a rugby fan and you watch Setanta, you know what you're going to get, and it's a good relationship. And I think they unlock a value that's not there on a general sports channel. In that, if you looked at the values of rugby, for example, 10 years ago in Asia, it was timing, and the fact that there was dedicated channels actually raised the value of the rights and had money flow back to the rights holders and provided a better service for the rugby fans in Asia. But it is going to be a battle for them, and as Discovery becomes more aggressive, as they become more aggressive, as the local channels come back, there's been sport launches across the world, you see an increasing competition for anything that has a value that will drive a subscriber. And as a result, you worry about the future of those niche channels that are based on one deal or two deals, because you lose one deal and the channel falls over.
And one final question before we open up to the audience. Obviously, in 2018 and 2020, the major sports events coming to Asia, but those are events like the games traditionally showed on free television in most territories. Are those things that can have a knock-on effect on the pay television market as well? I mean, is it more likely that as we get further down the line, that pay television will have a greater role in transmitting the major events, the World Cups, the Olympics?
Yeah, I think Asian Games is the one that's close to our heart, and one that we're selling at the moment. And I think you look at the solutions for an Asian Games, and the fact that there are so many stories there of interest to a local market means that often a free-to-air broadcaster just doesn't have the space to show all those stories. So pay TV can grow because it can provide something unique, something that the audience out there really wants, and it is complementary to the service that's on free-to-air. And that's a great example with the Olympics, and a similar story, and hopefully we'll do the same in the Asian Games.
How do you see that panning out?
I agree with Peter, because for events that with significant national interest, we have been working with our free-to-air partners for the last 17 years. Like what Peter said, the free-to-air will focus much more on the local stories of the athletes, always competing in Olympics, for example. And what we are providing is another type of service, a more international approach with the multi-channel. Every sports being covered on our platform.
Okay. We've got a few minutes left if you want to open up to questions. If anyone does have a question, if you could identify yourself and say which panelist you'd like to address the question to. A gentleman here in the grey jacket.
The program really changed, and I was wondering what maybe you guys think about the action sport in general in Asia. We're producing an event in Montreal. My thought is that in China, like in Asia, it's really starting to boom, and maybe people didn't really discover it. I know it's probably not in your portfolio. It's probably really small after all these other sports. But I was just curious to know, as what Frank asked, is there still space for smaller sports to be discovered, like, for example, action sport?
There's definitely a space, but it's a question of how big that space is and therefore how it can be brought to the market. But I do think that there may not be a space for full-fledged 24-hour linear channel, but there could be the space for it to be offered as an OTT product, to be offered as a play service, those type of things. I think with the evolution of the manner in which we're able to roll out services, there will be space for niche offerings as we go along.
3 members of the panel for I think a very illuminating conversation. So Rohit Silva from Fox International Channel. Thank you very much.
It's not a bad business. It depends how you value it. If you value it against Premier League football, yeah, but our World Championship squad is $1.4 million.
Don't bring that excuse out already.
If I got back,
All this writing on the table, it's so distracting. I know. All right, ready? All right.
Justin, you want to have one?
That's good team. You have a shot?
You done? Who won? But again, a lot of people are buying and then we have I'm sure that the manufacturing industry, like the textiles and stuff like that. For us, I mean, for us, I feel that designers, everyone I've seen, I feel that if you make a challenge,
Come on. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
It's also quite a few years, every second year, whoever's after we have one longer, then they come back, renew, whatever. It's also long-term thing, building relationships, building trust, specifically here.
C'est tout ce qu'on s'arrive comme on dit, ouais,
One, two, three. Okay. Okay.